Welcome to the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. On this channel, we're going to be discussing all things marrying a farmer, moving to the land, and becoming integrated with a family farming operation. Whether you're moving to the farm for the first time or whether you're moving back into a family farming operation, we discuss the ins and the outs of all of it. So let's jump into today's episode. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Ultimate Farm Wife. I'm your host, Katja Williams, and today I'm talking with Tori. Tori, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
I'm so excited to be here, so thank you for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself, your family, and your farm?
Absolutely. So my name is Tori Kopke. I have a bit of an accent because I'm originally from Texas. I've been in Australia about 15 years now. So I do have my passport. So I feel like that gives me some street cred. I live and work on our family farm in the wheatbelt of Western Australia. I have a husband and two kids, two little boys, 4 and 7, and they are full of energy, and the farm is the best place in the world for them. I also run my own business alongside the farm, working as the rural business coach, where I help women grow their businesses to 6 figures and beyond and become standout leaders in their field.
Amazing. That's so amazing. We connected originally on Instagram, so I'm going to put all the links for Tori down in the show notes below. But Tori, let's start where you grew up. So how did a Texas girl grow up?
That is, such a good question. I was definitely a city girl in Texas, but the unique thing about Texas, which is very similar, and you can draw a lot of parallels back to Australia, is like, yes, you might be in the city, but my uncle's got a ranch, and then we go shooting on the weekend, and we're always out fishing, and we're very much embracing the outdoor life, which I feel like Australia does in spades. And so when I graduated uni in the middle of the GFC, and I was like, oh gosh, no one's going to hire me. I kind of chose Australia. I looked on the map and I was like, they speak English. They'll give me a visa. That sounds like a good enough reason to go there. I did speak Spanish at the time, but my dad was a solid no for me to go to South America. So I was like, okay, Australia sounds good. I wonder if now, that I live on the other side of the world with his grandchildren, that he's like, South America might have been a bit easier.
Yes, we will see what he thinks about that. Maybe that's a question we can ask him. So you finished uni. What were you studying at uni?
Ooh, I have a Bachelor of Science in anthropology, and then my minors were in geology and business. So I really thought I was going to go into the oil and gas industry, which is where my career started. Like, it does make sense that I started in oil and gas.
So tell us about that in a little bit more detail. Did you get a job in oil and gas when you came to Australia?
I did. So I did as you always do. I was backpacking around. Girl meets boy, girl and boy fall in love. Boy goes to the pub, girl works at the pub. So I met my husband at the local pub here in town, and he swept me off my feet. But I was like, no, 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 I'm going traveling. I've got a post-grad degree to get. Like, I'm sorry. I'm off to Singapore and then I'm back to Texas. I got to the airport in Perth to fly to Singapore, and I checked my bags and said goodbye. I got to my gate and then I was like, I don't think I'm going to go. So I said, I'm not getting on this flight. And when you don't get on a flight, they have to get your bags off the plane. So then I had to hold the whole plane. It was delayed because of me, because I had to get my bags. And then I called him and I said, I'm not going to Singapore. And he came and picked me up. And then I started my first seating with him, which was an experience. But at that time, I was still like a backpacker on a backpacker visa. And I was so determined to get a job that would, keep me in Australia, so sponsor me. So I think I applied for every job under the sun that I could find that I was remotely qualified for. And then one came up and it said, must be an American or an Australian to apply. And I was like, this is my job. This is the job I'm going to get. And he read through it and he was like, oh, I don't know about that, but okay. Because they were looking for a Australasia manager for their Australasia operations. Now, I had experience through uni in sales and marketing and running my dad's business. So I had business experience behind me, but did I have the experience as a 21-year-old to run an Australasian oil and gas company. I don't know, but I applied for the job. They gave it to me, which was brilliant experience. For you to be 21, flying internationally, negotiating $100 million contracts. My mentor, it was a female-owned company, and she had sole ownership. So she was worth $3 billion and she was my mentor. So to have that at 21 was incredible. So I worked for that business for years. I built it up. And then I was eventually headhunted by a local machinery dealership to come run their business and transform them from a $3 million to a $15 million business, which I did. And then from that point on, I founded my own business. But that's how I got to stay in Australia, was a lot of business, as well as, I found a farmer I loved and was determined to stay here.
That's incredible. That's amazing. What a journey and what a wealth of experience. So what was your first impression of the farm? Did you see the farm, when you were first dating, or was it when you decided, I'm not leaving, I'm coming back for seeding?
No. So my husband, his pickup line, this is just so typical Texan, and it just worked. He said, would you like to go kangaroo shooting it? And as a Texan, I was like, absolutely. Like, I was just thinking, Uncle Billy is going to think this is so cool. So I was like, absolutely. So our first date out of the pub was to the farm. I don't know that we shot any kangaroos, but like, I got a full farm tour. He took me out to dinner. Like, we got the whole experience. So my very first impression was seeing the farm. I think at the time I didn't quite understand the scale of farming and all of the resources and technology that go into farming. I think I initially was as ignorant as most of the world when it comes to farming. And so I was just like, wow, cool, some paddocks, and that's a nice tractor, just not understanding necessarily the level of investment and commitment that went into farming. But I got schooled pretty quickly in my first seeding. Like, we went pretty much from dating to seeding, and it was, baptism by fire for sure.
It's a pretty intense time to come to an operation, especially a broad ag operation like his. So tell us a little bit about the setup of the structure of the business and how that baptism of fire worked. Like, were you on the tools? Were you driving all the spare parts? What was your part in that season?
Yeah, definitely. So the farm, it's my husband and I live on the farm full time. My father-in-law is still a vested interest, but he probably only comes up about 4 times a year. He's retired on the coast. Love that for him. He's up now, so they're off doing something. Don't know what they're doing at the moment. We're kind of in that like lull of the season right now. Yeah, so my first season on the farm, I was probably doing a majority of just like cooking and figuring it all out. Like, where was my place? I guess we have a very unique structure in that I don't have a mother-in-law. My husband's mother passed away about 30 years ago. And so there's really no matriarch on our farm. And so there was no one to show me, like, this is the role that needs supporting and needs filling. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, here's all the pieces. I'm going to pick it up and figure it out. So there was definitely no kind of like, this is how we do things. This is like the support, the additional support, that kind of unseen labor that so many farmers' wives do. I just kind of had to figure it out. And I mean, it's such a huge role. And so for it not being done, it just meant the boys were like, getting their lunches from the town fuel station, and dinner was at the pub every night. Like, it wasn't necessarily the best life. So I don't know if anyone had an apple in their lunchbox. I don't even know if they had lunchboxes back then. Like, it was very much a bloke's world, and they're just trying to get by and get seating done. And so I think quality of life definitely improved. I did start kind of, doing parts runs and that sort of thing. But my husband and I kind of agreed early on that I wouldn't necessarily be driving anything unless it was the last resort option. We just thought it'd be better for our marriage. So naturally, last resort option, I learned to drive a tractor at 2 a.m. because there was no one else to drive a tractor. So yes, I can operate most things on the farm. It's not my first choice, and it's probably not his first choice, but having had, different levels of staff over the years, I'm actually pretty good at driving and operating. But yeah, it's not my first choice. The picture of having your kids in the chaser bin with you, or I remember I was pregnant with my youngest. I was holding my biggest and I was driving the rake tractor for hay while he was napping on me. And then there's my husband over there and his baler on his own. I was just like, this is not fair. But it's like that last resort labor, like you've got to do it because you're the only option. And you just kind of do it and get on with it.
Yeah, yeah. So reflecting back on those early days, if there is another farm wife or girlfriend out there who's listening to the podcast going, oh my gosh, that's me right now. How did you work that out? How did you get through it? How am I going to apply that to my life? What advice would you have for them, Tori?
I think if you are looking at a farm and you're just like, I don't know how to integrate myself into it, or I don't know where my role is, that's when I think you just kind of look around and you're like, well, what jobs aren't being done? Like, what needs doing? And it's those little unseen jobs that just completely transform the lifestyle of living on a property. Like, it's the little things that make it so much better and so much worthwhile, because my husband's not going to make everyone go outside and have a barbecue and cook on the fire on Sunday afternoon. He's not going to do that. But like those little things are the big memories that people are going to be like, oh, remember that? Like those are the things our kids are going to get around that they talk about. So I think just like look at what you have and then how can we make it better? How can we sprinkle like some magic on it and really make it an amazing experience? And so I think it's, yeah, taking the pieces and then making them your own is my best bit of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tori, did you keep any sort of written schedule to help prompt those in like preparation for that in the future? So going from when you were first introduced to it and starting to see these unnoticed bits and pieces, deciding to make it your own, did you keep a diary? How did you work out what were the jobs that needed to be done and when did they need to do it?
I didn't keep a diary, but I do have a spreadsheet. So I have a spreadsheet that has all of like my seeding and harvest meals, all of their recipes, and then basically transfers to a calendar. And then I can figure out like if I'm feeding, 6 people, what's the quantities for everything. So I kind of just at the start of every season, I go back to that, figure out who I'm feeding, what I need, and I start there. But in terms of having a diary, that sounds wonderful, but I do have ADHD and I just would forget to keep a diary. We have, the farm diaries, but they're not my responsibility, thankfully. So no, I just notes on my phone and a couple spreadsheets is how I roll.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Georgie, who I've interviewed on the podcast before, if you are listening, please reach out to Tori because she was looking for an organized way of how to do harvest meals. And Tori, I think that would be the perfect solution for her and some of our other guests.
Yes, reach out. Like I've got it, I can copy it and send it on.
Absolutely. And for those who are wanting to keep a diary and work out the timings on farm, I actually run a course and have a workbooklet that goes with it, where you can actually sit down with your farmer or by yourself and track what's going on farm, track how long things take, and then you can implement that into the family farming practice as well.
So cool. That's amazing.
Where heritage and legacy intersects with the fashion world. Homestead Road is founded by fifth-generation wool producer Bridget Brooks, built on the values of versatility, quality, durability, and sustainability. Homestead Road's mission is to educate, connect, and celebrate rural women by creating timeless, modern, and effortless wool pieces that speak to the sensibility and sophistication of women on the land. After having her 4 children, Bridget learnt how important clothing and fashion can make you feel after your body and identity changes. Bridget found a gap in the merino activewear market, as many of the other pieces already on the market were either very technical or pretty plain, which is not what her pieces are about. They are effortless and modern athleisure pieces that can be taken from day to night, task to task, as is the busy life of multitasker rural women. Bridget has given the absolutely fabulous listeners and the ultimate farm wife listeners a 40% discount code. Thank you so much, Bridget. That code is Katja40, so Katja, Katja 40, and that expires on the 31st of October 2025. So log on to the website, which is in the show notes below, and get yourself some Homestead Road pieces that will be part of your wardrobe for years to come using the discount code. So Tori, big changes between when you first introduced to the farm and what your position is now and how the farm is operating. So we spoke about lunches during that first seeding, how it was, the fuel station sandwiches, and then now and dinner at the pub. So what is changed in the 15 years that you've been on farm?
Yeah, so now I think my level in the farm is definitely like at that more, I guess, director level, as well as like I still have to feed the team. But in terms of growth over the last 15 years, yeah, it's definitely more at that like director level. If there's anything around compliance, it definitely falls under my wheelhouse. Funny enough, and I feel like this is very controversial, my husband still does the books for the farm. We do, budgets together and cash flow together with our advisor. But when it comes to like the day-to-day book work, my husband does it, which is, I think, not the norm for most farms, but I love that he does it. And I think it keeps him to account as well, the fact that he's doing his own books. So yeah, I come in basically, compliance, payroll, anything that has to do with our our CBH, which is our grain receivable port. I have a lot of communication with them, anything to do with hiring, HR, workers' compensation, getting quotes, all of that kind of falls in my wheelhouse. So I do a lot of the paperwork without doing the book work.
That's a great combination. That seems to be fairly well balanced in your situation. Did you learn a lot of that through, your work through the mines in oil, or was that something that you did afterwards?
No, it was just definitely like I have the experience and the know-how. And so it was just like, well, I'm just going to apply it to the farm because at the end of the day, we're still a business. And so it was just kind of that transfer of knowledge. When it comes to things like, getting involved in your grower group or whatever your grain handler is, I think it's just important. And it's so easy for the blokes to not do it and to just kind of keep farming until something breaks or there's an issue in the system. But I feel like if we're going to have opinions, give back, continuous improvement, like you want to do it on the front end when there's not necessarily an issue or a problem. And so I love going to things like the AGMs. I love going to our bin meetings. Like I just think it's that level of involvement where you can bring additional insight into the farm. But yeah, in terms of like operating your business like a business, to me it's just a no-brainer, and my husband is absolutely on board with it. Like we have our kind of big annual meetings. We are always talking about continuous improvement, like what's happening next, where are we buying, what are we looking to expand. So those kind of higher level conversations, absolutely, I'm a part of. And if you feel like you can't be a part of them, that's where I think education, like educate yourself so that you can be a part of them and that you can come to the table with opinions. And I mean, there's so many different resources and courses like yours available. And so I think that those definitely have their place in the world, but there's also, find a mentor, find someone who's walked the steps before you and get in touch with them, as well as dive into any sort of research that you can find around it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the digital world that we have at the moment, particularly around socials and LinkedIn, people are more are more accessible than they ever have been before. And it's the confidence to just send someone a message, just pop into their DMs, link with them on LinkedIn. That is the first step, and then sending them a message.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that I mean, there's been some brilliant women who've supported me so much, especially in my early days throughout having kids. Obviously, I don't have a mother-in-law. My parents are in Texas. Like we're pretty much solo except for the people who are willing to step up and be a part of our community and support us. And so I think send the message, ask for help, do the things like no, and because Australia is so phenomenal, when someone's like, "Hey, I need a hand," the answer is always, "Of course, I'd love to support you."
That is one great thing about our culture, that is for sure. So, while we're talking about integrating the kids, tell us about what it was like when they were in the newborn stage and now into their beautiful ages of, was it 7 and 5?
7 and 4, yeah.
7 and 4.
Oh, so my big boy was, when he was born, I think the 0 to 1 transition just hit me over the head. Like, that was not such a life change that I expected. I don't think I expected it to be as challenging
Mhm.
and literally just with me all the time because there was no grandparents to hand him off to. He's just in, like, we were two peas in a pod. So that, I think, I didn't quite expect. I mean, in reality, of course he was going to be with me 24/7, but that kind of additional mental load, I don't know that I was quite ready for. And then when we had my youngest, he came preemie. So it was a very challenging time. He arrived early. It was the end of seeding. So I was hospitalized for a few weeks before he came. And so my husband was having to run the farm, have the toddler, deal with his wife who was stuck in Perth in a hospital. And so I think for me, it wasn't necessarily a challenge for me. It was much more a challenge for him. Like, I was, hanging out in hospital eating chicken nuggets and it was fine. Whereas for him, he was really doing the juggle. And then by the time we all got home and we had kind of found our new normal, even now it's something that, our kids are just with us around the clock. Like, we're their parents and we love it and fully embrace that. But something that my husband and that is probably really unique to us is we do a quarterly off-farm date night and we leave the kids behind. So we hire a babysitter and we do it pretty much every quarter because March is his birthday. We do one in June, then we'll do another in September at my birthday, and then we do one at Christmas to go get the kids Christmas presents. So that's kind of our like quarterly off farm, and we leave. And I think it's brilliant for our marriage, but also it's really good for the kids who are just like normally around mom and dad all the time. So it does give them that kind of like break of, oh, someone new, someone exciting is looking after us. But now as we're eating, and I was just saying this to my husband yesterday, like, I am so excited about the new season of having bigger boys where we're going camping. But we've always been a fishing family, so we've always taken the boys fishing. But now it's like, okay, we can probably, push it from a 3-hour fishing trip to a full day fishing trip, and we can go camping and we can tow the boat up north. And just this whole new season of having bigger boys, I'm so excited about.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And that it is uncommon, sort of in agriculture itself, to be able to get away and to do that. So I think for most of our listeners, they're going to be thinking, how did you manage that, Tori? Like, how did you convince him to leave the farm? And or how is the farm set up while you're away? Either whether it's just for your date night or whether you're doing those bigger trips now. How do you get him to leave?
How do I get him to leave? The key is you have to get him to leave. Like, if we're on the farm, he's working. So funny enough, and this is also really unique to us. We do a 3 to 4 week holiday in January every year. We go to the coast, we take the boat, and we pretty much leave the farm. So we are a pure cropping farm. We don't have any animals. That, I think, helps quite a bit in that ability to pick up and leave. But even just the quarterly date night, that came about. We got invited to very dear friend's wedding in Ireland. And we're like, okay. And we had a 9-month-old and a 4-year-old. And I was like, are we doing it? Are we doing it? And we said, yep, we're doing it. So we went, the two of us, for 10 days. His dad came up and had the boys, which he's never really volunteered for that since. But we went for 10 days. And the whole time we're like, wow, this is great. Like, I like you. You like me. You're actually really fun to hang out with. We should hang out together, like the two of us more. And so we got back and we're like, okay, we're going to make this a priority. And then it just kind of became this, like, a quarterly thing that we decided to do. And it was almost like ripping the Band-Aid. And then once I decided, like, this is what we do every quarter, he just kind of went, oh, okay. And then I just start booking the hotel, finding the babysitter, just getting it set up so that we could leave. And we usually do a Friday night. So the big one's at school and whoever's watching the kids only has one. And then we're back by Saturday sometime. So it's about 24 hours away from the farm, but it's just a real nice kind of break in the season. Yeah. So I guess the setup is, it really helps, one, that we don't necessarily have animals, but then also I think he's started he started to realize I'm going to book the holiday and you're coming whether you like it or not, or just stay behind. We went to New Zealand a couple of weeks ago for school holidays, and he was adamant he wasn't coming. And I was meeting my family from Texas there, so that was the halfway point, which is definitely not halfway, but that's fine. So I was sitting at the kitchen table, and the boys and I had our flights booked, and I said something about, "Oh, I'm just going to book the jet boating," and he was like, "Oh, what else are you booking?" And I was like, "Oh, well." And then he said, maybe I'll come with you. So I think it was a week before we left and he booked his flight. So I don't know if that's unique to my husband, the level of FOMO. You just have to get it there and then he'll agree to come. But yeah, I will just notoriously book something and he's welcome to come, but I've booked it and I'm taking my children.
Enjoying The Ultimate Farm Wife? You might also love this podcast by Katie and Eileen, Barnyard Language.
The Barnyard Language Podcast is honest talk about running farms and raising families, hosted by us, Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
We talk to guests who have life experience that's relatable to parents in agriculture and offer resources, perspective, compassion, a few swears, and lots of laughs.
Whether your farm is a raised bed in your backyard or 10,000 acres.
Whether your family is in the planning stages or you've got a dozen kids.
If you've ever had a car seat in a combine, a stroller in a stable, or you have a toddler or a teen in your tractor, this is the podcast for you.
Subscribe to Barnyard Language today on your favorite podcast platform.
That's something that I've said on the podcast many times before is you have to go. Like for your health, for your mental health, for just a break, something different. Sometimes it doesn't have to be doing those flights and going hours and hours away. Sometimes it just has to be down the road. But that break, that change, it's really refreshing. And I think it's something that we need to get better at doing. And I think it's definitely something that we need to either budget in ourselves or budget into those family farming meetings when we're talking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if it's not something that I think everyone needs to make it a priority. And if you can't do it straight away, or it's not just an initial, like, I'm booking it and I'm going, then I think it's, okay, well, how am I going to, one, work it into my own personal budget? I will say I have my own business, so I do have that additional flexibility of being able to book things. But even when I didn't, it was still kind of a big priority that we were going to be doing this thing, we'd be going. It also helps that my husband is very passionate about fishing. So
Yes.
maybe get your husband on a fishing charter and start there. Play the long game.
The long game. I love that. Play the long game. And for me and my family, like I need to make sure that when we're leaving, we're either leaving very early in the morning, as the sun is coming up or before the sun is coming up, or my expectation is we're not going to leave until he's finished with the day and we leave late at night. Like sometimes I will have fed the kids, put them in their pajamas, and then we're going to leave and we're going to drive the first little leg of our trip, because I can guarantee if we are trying to leave in the morning at a normal time, he will just have to go and check something, or he'll just have to go and do something, and laws of physics, something will be wrong and we will not be leaving. So you got to get them at the early and the late, at the end and the start of the day. Don't allow them to work.
Yeah, because they'll just drive off. Oh, I just need to go look at, next minute, and we're hours behind.
Absolutely. So, Tori, you have a podcast of yourself. You are pushing nearly 300 episodes, which is amazing. You're helping people build 5-figure businesses. Tell us a little bit about that and how that merges into rural and remote life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast, I started, it must have been like 2019. I started the podcast, and then I've had some little breaks along the way. But what I really found, and I think this was because obviously I had quite an extensive business background, is there are so many people and so many amazing women that are moving to regional Australia because of the boy they fall in love with at the pub. And they're bringing with them all of these skills and haven't necessarily been able to transfer them directly to a farming property or into a job that makes a lot of sense for them. And so this real like thread of entrepreneurship just lives through regional Australia. And I, in my corporate career, was basically like, okay, how do I take this idea and then how do I 10x it? How do we take this idea and how do we really maximize the impact, make more money, make more, build systems around it, hire people. So that whole building something from scratch is just something I was doing kind of innately in my corporate career. And I started realizing there was just no one looking at people in the country and supporting them, especially when I started my business in 2016. There was no one kind of supporting country businesses specifically. And I realized, well, this is a huge opportunity. And so initially, I kind of started with our local area and ran my business as just a marketing agency. And then I have I guess I like to look at the holistic problem instead of just like, I'm going to help you with your marketing. So I transitioned into coaching and strategy. And that's really where I found my sweet spot. And that's where I could make the biggest impact. And my clients now, have taken ideas, turned them into multi six-figure businesses. Some of my clients are, hitting 1 to 2 million, like some big, big revenue coming back into regional Australia. And that's what I love. I'm like, these women are doing incredible things, bringing all of this investment back to regional Australia, as well as making a huge impact in their area, whether they're speakers or they're improving local services or access to services. And some of them are doing it, while traveling around in a caravan. Now that we have Starlink, like the whole outback is literally your office. You can work from anywhere. And how I work mostly with people nowadays is in a mastermind. So it brings together incredible women across regional Australia. We focus on everything from kind of strategy to marketing to systems so that their businesses can truly grow. And I've had some clients start with me, and my goal is always like, I want to pay for myself. I want you to make more money than I'm charging. And most of my clients are kind of there within 30, 60, 90 days. Like we can get a lot done in that first few months. And it's really incredible the impact of what they're doing. I also love more than anything that most of my clients come in and stay for a long time. So I have some clients that have been in my mastermind since I created it 3.5 years ago, which is just really cool. In an industry, and especially the coaching and online world, it's very kind of churn and burn. What's next? What's new? Whereas I'm more about like, what's sustainable for regional Australia? What's sustainable for your life if you're running it alongside a property? So I like to, I guess, take a different approach to the churn and burn online industry, but that's probably because I'm rooted in the country and so are my clients. And so it makes more sense to do something that's very much sustainable for regional Australia.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love the element where you said it can run alongside the farm. It can run alongside what the main enterprise and business is so that you can still be present in life and family and then go from there. So back in season 7, I spoke to a lot of females farmers who were either integrating back into a family farming business or they were trying to find their own space on farm. And they embrace that entrepreneurial spirit where they were value adding to the farm, looking at, where do I fit or what can I make work based on what the business was already. So we spoke to Rove Numby where, they now do gourmet walking tours on their farm. So you come and you stay for the weekend and they hire a cook and the cook feeds you all and then you do the walking tours of the farm. It's just absolutely beautiful. We talked to Fiona from Outback Lamb who, they already had a prime lamb production. So then they value added by doing some of their own meat and their own sausage rolls and things like that. So if you are listening now and what Tori is saying is resonating with you, all her details will be in the show notes, but also go back and listen to season 7. There's 10 episodes there, which are just absolute gems of how to work out how to value add to your farm, whether it's an Airbnb, a gourmet meat product, walking tours, it's all there.
It's so cool, the things that people are able to do. And still, I'll have a call with someone. I'm like, wow, that's a really cool business. I love that. So one of my newest clients, they're bee farmers, but they're also doing school incursions. Like, it's just so cool, that value add element. And there's so much you can do if you just have a little bit of imagination, but also that thread of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm. And the courage and the bravery that comes with it. And sometimes all you need is someone like Tori to be in your corner and say, this is how we're going to make this work, or this is how we can make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you have someone, I mean, I have my own coach, but just having someone that says like, this is how you do it, and this is how it's worked, and this is how I've seen it work for 20 other people, it just gives you, it doesn't seem so scary when you have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tori, what is the main advice you would give to a female farmer, a farmer's wife who's listening to today's episode and they're coming up against some hurdles in their business? What would you let them know now?
Oh, it gets easier. It gets easier. I think, certain seasons of farming, and we've had really challenging seasons, whether it be because of external or internal, there's always going to be seasons where it just feels particularly challenging. And I think it gets easier. Ask for support, don't try to do it alone, whether it be from a friend, a relative, a stranger online, like get support because you know, if if you can have someone that's listening to you, reasoning with you, supporting you, it makes problems so much easier. So get support, it does get easier. I also think like I'm definitely one that like I want a solution and I want a solution now. So I think if you are in a heavy season, then look for a solution or look for a change of pace. Like look for doing something different. I think that there is so much to be said for kind of pattern interruption. So like what can you do to change the pattern of whatever it is that's really hard and really challenging? And I will say this for myself 100%. I can handle problems so much better when I am well rested, hydrated, and taking care of myself. The world is not so bad. I know that if I am exhausted, tears come easily, and it's just, I'm not my best. And so, like, if I can look after myself first, the problems seem a lot easier.
Absolutely. Tori, you have your own coaching business, you have your own podcast, you've got the farming business, you've got 2 kids. How do you find time for self-care? How do you find time to integrate looking after yourself and making sure you are hydrated, making sure you are doing that self-care? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, like today, I'm knocking off work early. I'm driving half an hour to pick up the kids. Then we're driving 40 minutes for me to go to PT so that I can, one, see my best friend at personal training. The kids can play with her daughter, and then we'll make the 40-minute drive home. Like, yeah, it's an extra 2 hours of driving, but for me, it's totally worthwhile to, one, get to see my best friend. Like, hi, that's filling up my cup just as it is, let alone do the personal training and move my body and be active. So I think sometimes it's doing the hard things to do to for self-care to become easy. Also, just putting myself to bed at a reasonable time is is a big thing. But in terms of integrating and fitting it all in, I think it's really important if you can or if you have the ability to outsource where you can. So I outsource a lot in my business. I have 4 incredible team members. They're all across regional Australia because I believe in investing back into regional Australia. So I outsource where I can. Even now, I was talking to my husband and I said, I think I have to get a cleaner in before harvest. I just don't see myself being able to carry the load on my own without a cleaner. And he said, can you make it work? And I said, well, yeah. So I think I'll be getting a cleaner. So I think if you can outsource what you can, do the hard things to fill up your cup, even if it is that extra 2 hours of driving. I also am a big, if you didn't notice, I love a spreadsheet and some meal planning. So I do like to kind of, make my lunches at the start of the week so that I'm at least feeding myself healthy through the week. Other things that I do that I guess fall into the outsourcing category as well is, seeing a naturopath, making sure that I am at my best before we even try to add in other factors. So external support is huge for me. I don't want anyone to think that like Tori's running a business and a farm and 2 kids on her own. Like I have a personal trainer, I'm getting a cleaner, I see a naturopath, I have a team of 4. Like it's definitely not just me hanging out doing it all on my own. I'm by no means superwoman. And obviously there is a level of investment that you do have to make. But I think again, it's like, okay, well, what could I invest in that's going to give me the maximum impact? And so I think that that's really important that you kind of look at what you have and then identify where can I get the most that's going to make the biggest difference for my life. Massages are nice, self-care is nice. That's all, I guess, external, but it's probably that investment probably isn't going to go the same distance as maybe seeing a naturopath or bringing in a cleaner once a month for a deep clean. Like, sure, massages or getting your nails done sounds nice, but it's actually not going to have that big return on investment. So I think that's important to look at, especially, if resources are tight, then let's look at where you're going to get the biggest return for yourself, because at the end of the day, you've got to look after yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with all of that. Tori, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your story, your tips, tricks, hacks, and advice, and also what you're doing on the podcast and in your business. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Ultimate Farm Wife. If today's chat has made you smile, nod, or feel a little bit more seen in this wild rural life of ours, share it with a mate, hit the follow button, and leave a 5-star review where you watch or listen to this podcast. It's the best way to keep growing this community and showing your support for the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. A big thank you to the crew behind the scenes who are helping keep this show on the rails. To our show editor, Krista DePathra at the Rural Podcasting Network, and Lou and her team at the Administration Agency. And of course, to yourselves who tune in every week. Until next time, keep your hearts full, your boots dusty, and your sense of humour close. Before you go, if you've been loving these farm life chats, I'd love for you to join me over on my other podcast too. It's called Absolutely Fabulous, where we dive into agriculture beyond the headlines and bridging the urban-rural divide. We'll deep dive into big conversations in ag, from the challenges to the highlights and what's shaping our future. It's a space where honest stories, laughter, and a good dose of farm life real talk goes on. So make sure to head to the link in the show notes, subscribe to the Absolutely Fabulous, and I'll play the intro for you now.
Hi, welcome to Absolutely Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people, and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer, and I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the Ultimate Farm Wife. Together we are Absolutely Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.